What dark secret are you hiding from everyone? My stepdad tried to kill me when I was little. TW for domestic violence and language. My stepdad was a grade A asshole. He was in my life from the beginning, after my bio dad up and left, till I was about 13-14. He was an abusive, alcoholic, jobless dickwad who constantly physically and verbally abused both my mom and I. On multiple occasions either my mom or I called the cops and watched them drag the sorry sack of shit out the house and throw him in jail for a couple of days. They were, sadly, the happiest days of my childhood. When I was little I can remember countless times where I had gotten into physical fights with the man, resulting in black eyes, cuts, bruises, the works. I won't go into detail any further, since it's kinda hard to talk about, but I will say this. I never told anyone about this. This is the first time I've gotten it down in writing or out in the open at all. When I was little, 5-6 years old I'd say, I lived with my mom and stepdad in my stepdad's parents' attic. My mom frequently went out during the day for work, and didn't come home till late evening or night. Well, one day, after my parents had a pretty hostile argument, my mom left for work and my dad was pretty pent up. This is what I remember, and continued to remember almost every day since the event. My dad took one of those large, heavy-duty trash bags out of his parents' kitchen, dragged me into the living room of the attic, stuffed me in the bag, and tied it after letting out some air. I remember being terrified, too scared to act out of fear of getting hit or yelled at. I waited till I heard him close the attic door, then proceeded to use my fingers to claw a hole through the trash bag. I remember it taking a while, since I wasn't that strong at the time due to malnourishment and my age, but I eventually made it out and laid on the floor just waiting for my mom to get home. I'd give she knows what happened, if she just thought I was playing with a trash bag or what. But that's what I remember and I've been carrying it for years. Thankfully she eventually left that dirt bag and I can now happily say I have an amazing father who I love very much, so this story does have a happy ending. Thanks for reading my little vent. I'm kinda terrified to post this but getting it out finally will do me some good. I witnessed my fiancé's suicide last year. I moved states afterwards and started a new life. My co-workers, clients, and new friends call me the sunshine of whatever room I walk into. But I'm completely dead inside. Even though I choose to fake it, I resent them for not seeing how fucked up I am. Last Christmas I leaned my sister and I don't have the same father and are technically half-sisters. My sister's biological father tried to start a relationship with my mom that resulted in a pregnancy and ultimately didn't work out. That biological father is dead now but I didn't probe any further about his identity or how he died in case it was something traumatic for my mom to remember. So she raised my sister as a single mother at my grandma's house in the 80s, then she met my father and they started dating and it worked out because they got married in the 90s, moved into a new house, and a short time after that I was born. She told me never call my sister my half-sister and just pretend all of this doesn't matter because she's my sister and I'm keeping it that way. And if anyone asks about the 10-year age gap I just tell them it's a long story. I have a secret fantasy life, populated with imaginary friends. It started in grade school, and I have continued all my life. I am in my 50s now, and still prefer to be alone in my imaginary world instead of being with family or friends. I can't even tell my psychiatrist because I am afraid he will lock me up or give me drugs to make it all stop. When I was young, probably around age 9 or 10, I was walking home with my dog from a house around the block when he cut the corner and walked diagonally through the yard of this super mean old lady who lived at the end of your street. She was in her yard at the time tending to these really fancy looking rose bushes she had growing in beds along the border with her neighbor. My dog was a very friendly golden retriever who didn't even really come near her and certainly didn't do anything threatening. But she sprayed the fuck out of him with some kind of insecticide or other chemical she was using on her roses. I ran back home with the dog and hosed him off. He coughed a bunch, but seemed otherwise fine. I didn't tell my parents because somehow I thought I was going to get into trouble for letting the dog walk in her yard. I'm glad I didn't tell them, though, because I decided that night to sneak downstairs, out the half-bath window, and down the street to her yard where I cut down every goddamn rose bush I could get my hands on. When I was a teenager, I worked at a novelty tourist shop near me. Being the idiot that I was, I stole a wad of cash from the store. It was $100 in ones. I told nobody, but they knew it was missing. Right about the same time, a co-worker who was always trying to get me fired was telling someone she got about $100 in tips from her other job. They ended up firing her because they didn't trust that it wasn't her. When I was 16, I conspired with a heroin addict I met online to help me off myself with heroin and dumped my body in a dumpster in exchange for my valuables. I lived in a small town and he was in a bigger city where my school had an upcoming trip. We planned for me to slip away during the trip and meet up with him to do the deed. He chickened out last minute and ghosted me. I've struggled with disordered eating for at least a decade. It ebbs and flows. I know it's unhealthy, but the toxic part of me loves the feeling of being empty. Several years ago it was really bad. I was at my lowest weight ever. I had brain fog, difficulty breathing. When I started eating again, my stomach would get really bloated even if I only ate a small amount. I gained weight in the last year or so and my depression and anxiety got really bad for a while. My family thinks I don't want to spend time with them. However, I just wanted to stay home because trying on my clothes and the idea of being in public made me want to kill myself. It was easier on me mentally to just stay home. I can feel myself slipping back into my old disordered eating habits, unfortunately. When I was younger, I lived with my grandmother. Not long after I turned 18, her health started to decline. That sort of decline that means she won't be around for much longer. Over the months I did my best to take care of her. Getting her to the hospital when she needed, and other things. We had someone coming every day to help her with things I couldn't. Well, what my family doesn't know is that the night she passed, I was in the living room watching TV. My dog was in bed with my grandma, and I started to hear him whimper and bark. I knew what was happening. I knew that if I acted I could potentially save her. I didn't want to watch her suffer anymore though, to watch her live with so much pain, and unable to do anything for herself anymore. So I made the choice to let her pass before making any calls. She lived 92 years, and the only regret I have is that she passed a month after I would have graduated if I hadn't been kicked out of school. She had been in good enough health at the time to go to my graduation. I still kick myself for how stupid I was back then. I didn't expect this much support. Thanks. I'm not too torn up about letting her pass. I knew it was for the best. She was such a great person. She didn't deserve to live in such a poor manner any longer than she already had. I don't regret what I did. I regret what I had done that got me kicked out of school, that I didn't try and make it to graduation for her. I think I've lived my life so far in a way that she'd be proud of. Not graduating before she passed is the only regret I really have in this life so far, and I'm 35 now, so I think I'm doing pretty good. 2 years ago, one of my best friends and I went halfsies on a fuck ton of Xanax. On June 8th we both took Xanax from the batch we split. I woke up, he didn't. No one knows I had anything to do with the drugs that killed him, and I don't know if I can ever bring myself to tell someone. I had an IBS attack once and had to violently shit in a church grounds behind someone's car. Used underwear to wipe too and left that there. Not proud. It's heartbreaking hearing of so many people who were sexually assaulted as children and feeling like they have no option but to hide it, lest it cause irreparable rifts between friends, family, and other close ones. Just want to let all of you affected by this know that if you did go public, you're not the cause of any conflict, no matter how anybody else paints it. You were the victim of one of the most heinous things one human being can do to another. The source of conflict is all down to whoever perpetrated the violence against you, and the shame should not be yours to live with. I make up lies about what I do on the weekend. Usually I don't do much and I'm very content with that. Others are always asking me what I'm doing and I never had anything to tell them. I make up lies to get out of phone calls, or plans. Saying I'm out of town or with friends. I love just being left alone. My PTSD isn't getting better. I have nightly nightmares of the industrial accident I was in. I see my coworker ripping his burnt face off every night. I no longer scream in my sleep because of it. I'm no longer terrified as much by it. Even though I know it's not my fault, I feel an enormous amount of guilt for what happened to him. Sometimes when I'm not sleeping I'll hear the scream he made in the distance and it'll make my blood feel like ice. Therapy hasn't done much.
I hope you all are doing well, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to like if you enjoyed this video. If you have something to say critically or otherwise, leave a comment. And if you enjoy this content, don't forget to subscribe to see more of it. I hope you all have wonderful and fulfilled lives.